Hello everybody and welcome back to DeckTech for Decks. Before we get into it, I just ask that you guys leave a like and consider subscribing. The more subscribers I get, the better quality videos I can make for you. Alright, now that that's out of the way, we can get into this deck tech. Today we're doing a deck tech on the Swarm Lord. This guy wants to create a massive wide board state and make sure everybody has a counter. That way if we lose some creatures, we're going to draw some cards, and if not, we're going to do damage to their face. This is one of those decks that is really aggro, and I'm really into it because you're just going to be attacking face the whole game. You really don't care if you win, but you're going to do a lot of damage throughout the game regardless. So let's get into how we're going to make that board massive. Alright guys, from the start, let me entice you with how we're going to create that massive board state. One of my favorite cards in the deck, Dragon Broodmother. This card does everything you want, right? You're going to create a massive board state. You're going to draw cards whenever they enter the battlefield because we're going to be sacking creatures with tokens on them. And then you'll be left with a massive creature with counters on it. It's pretty insane. We're going to draw cards, create a massive board state. This card does everything you want to do. Avenger of Zendikar, not equally as good, but pretty good, right? Because when it comes into the battlefield, we're going to create all those plant tokens, and then you drop that land, and boom, they all buff up. They've all got counters, and if they want to deal with that, they're going to have to let us draw some cards. Chasm Skulker. This one ripped the blue player, am I right? While we're drawing those cards, this guy's going to get massive, and as soon as he dies, we're going to just create a massive army of little chasms and swing him for lethal. Tyrannid Herodon. This one, I think people are confused by it because it seems like people only want to put it in a tribal deck, but this card is just good to go wide. Because you attack the first time, you got 2, right? And then next turn you'll have 4. And then next turn you'll have 8. This card gets out of hand if they don't deal with it. On top of that, it does have that ward ability, so it has protection. And in this deck, none of our creatures are going to be entering the battlefield without counters if we're doing what we want to do. Termagant Swarm. This one's a Snake Hydra, but cooler because it's got that Ravenous ability, right? And then sack it, and then boom, board state. Tervagon. This one, it does have that Ravenous ability too, which I'm really fond of. And whenever it deals combat damage, it creates a board state, so it's a little better than the previous card. Finally, Mycoloth. This one, it's going to enter the battlefield, sack a bunch of creatures, we're going to draw a lot of cards off of it, and then he's going to make our board bigger every turn. As you can see, this deck utilizes a lot of cards that aren't really that good in other decks, and I'm pretty excited to abuse those. I've talked about how we're going to have everything enter with a counter, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. We have Master Biomancer. This guy, he can grow, and the more he grows, the bigger our creatures are going to enter the battlefield as. Grumgly the Generous. This is just going to make sure they all enter in with a counter. Bloodspore Thrynax. This one really has no ceiling, right? Because imagine we have a massive board state. We sacrifice a bunch of, let's say, plant tokens. We brought him from Avenger of Zendikar. Draw a lot of cards, and then whenever we cast our next creature spell, they're going to enter in as a massive creature no matter what it is. Zemet Guildmage. This has the potential to just have everybody enter in with a counter on them, and we can draw cards off of that later. Bio Guy. This guy, you just tap him for mana. Whenever you cast your spell, he enters with a counter on him. Defiler of Vigor. This one, same scenario. Whenever you cast that green spell, he's going to enter in with a counter, and this also has the ability to lower the cost of your spells, so that's really cool. The Great Hinge. I don't think I have to sell you guys on this card. It's busted. Vigor. This one's really cool, right? Because I said we're going to be smashing face constantly, just aggro. Well, this guy's going to turn all the damage they take into 1/1 counters, so that's always pretty cool. Forgotten Ancient. This is the one that people really don't want to use removal on, but the more it stays, the more they're like, huh. Because we're going to take those counters and move them onto creatures that care about them, right? Because we have a lot of creatures that value off of being just massive. Thundering Raiju. This one can end the game. Like I said, remember that scenario where we have all of the plant tokens and then we just swing in with Thundering Raiju and then everybody's taking 7 damage to the face out of nowhere? That's going to be pretty good. Shaman of the Great Hunt. Not only does this have the ability to draw you some cards, but it can also buff all of your creature tokens up, or creatures. Rishgar Pima Renegade. This one, it can turn your whole board into mana dorks, so that's always just helpful. Finally, we have Hardened Scales, because that's just going to double up on the one-off effects. I know it's not doubling season or anything like that. It's not doubling the counters, but making it to where Grumgully gives everyone 2 counters instead of 1 is really good. Alright guys, I just wanted to cover some miscellaneous stuff before we get into the main categories. We've got Azorius Predation. Yes, I know this should have gone in the removal category, but I couldn't resist talking about it after I just talked about all of those things that's going to make our board massive. So these beasts are going to enter the battlefield, get buffed up by our tokens, and then chomp all of our opponent's creatures down to bits. That sounds amazing to me. Next, we have Animar. This is just going to lower the cost of our creatures and make it to where we're only paying the pips for our creatures. That's going to be pretty good. Colonial Hydra. This one holds a special place in my heart because it's the very first mythic I got. So not only is he really good in the deck, but I love this guy. Eternal Witness. This one just very effective, especially in a deck without black in it. We're going to need to get some of those cards back, right? Evolutionary Sage. Every time a land enters the battlefield, our board's just going to get bigger. We then have Spring Leaf Avenger. I'm giving this guy a shot. I haven't played against him much, but he seems pretty decent, like a recurable Eternal Witness, especially with the ability to make him bigger. Sword of Light and Shadow. Again, this deck, I was just kind of running low on stuff to recur stuff from the graveyard, and Sword of Light and Shadows, that's going to do the job. There's quite a ways to give our creatures keywords in the deck, so let's go over those. We have Winged Hive Tyrant. This one's just going to give them flying and haste, and that's going to be really good. Heralds of Secrets Streams. This one's going to give them all unblockable, so that's pretty cool. Old One Eye. This one enters the battlefield with 11 power because he brings in that 5/5 Tyrannid, and he gives them all trample, which is going to be really good for our commander. Tyrant Guard. This one's just going to make our whole board indestructible, which is really useful in this deck. Kodama of the West Tree. Not only is this going to get us a lot of lands onto the battlefield, but it's going to give everybody trample, so it's going to give them the ability to, you know, overrun our opponents for those lands. Guruk's Uprising. This one's going to draw us cards and give everybody trample. Temur Ascendancy. Again, we're going to get some card draw off of this, and everybody has haste. And finally, the one I'm most excited about is Cauldron of Souls. This one, just leave it on the battlefield with like a Grumgully effect. Give all of your creatures persist. They all enter the battlefield, or you sacrifice them, they all come back, you know what I mean? It's pretty good. It's going to protect your board, basically. Let's move into Ramp. We've got a lot of creatures. We've got to cast those creatures. We've got Rampant Rejuvenator. This one's pretty cool because it has no ceiling, right? This could draw us 2 cards. This could draw us 10 cards. Or, sorry, ramp us 10 cards. We don't know. Secure Tribe Elder. I kind of like this because he'll enter the battlefield, hopefully with a 1/1 counter. We sacrifice him and draw a card and get a land off of it. So kind of like Solemn Simulacrum, right? Fertilid Evolutionary Sage. This one's really cool because when you have Fertilid on the battlefield and Evolutionary Sage, you could just keep paying for the land, enters the battlefield, put a counter on Fertilid. It's a combo, it doesn't go infinite, but I thought it was pretty cool, so I thought I'd just point that out. Pure Strain Gene Stealer. I think this is kind of a better Fertilid, right? Because he attacks. You don't have to pay anything. And this does do the same thing with Evolutionary Sage, right? You get the counter back, you attack with him, you get the land. It's pretty good. Savala, Heart of the Wild. This one, we're going to be trying to create massive creatures. Hopefully we pull that off, and when we do, we'll be able to tap her for a lot of mana. Oracle of Moldiah. I'll not stop raving about this card. This card's insane. It's going to make sure that you're only drawing gas off of the top of your library, and that's just really efficient. Because if you think about it, if you play a land from the top of your library, not only are you drawing a card, but you're also playing a card. Kodama's Reach, very effective ramp. Cultivate, again, very effective ramp. And finally, Soul Ring. Alright guys, let's go over that card draw. We have Greater Good. This one, we're going to sacrifice a massive creature, draw a lot of cards, and we're not even going to care about discarding those 3 afterwards. Soul of the Harvest, there is a lot of creatures in this deck, so whenever we cast them, we're going to draw a card. Elemental Bond, a lot of those creatures are 3 power or above, and if they're not, we're going to put counters on them, so I think we'll be able to make it work. Tatiova Benthic Druid, whenever we ramp, we'll draw a card, just really efficient. Evolutionary Leap. This one's underrated, I think. I don't see it enough. You sacrifice a creature and then you're guaranteed to get another creature. So let's say we're just sacrificing plant tokens for, you know, a Dragon Broodmother. Do that every day. Bred for the hunt, whenever our creatures with counters on them are dealing combat damage, we're going to be drawing a card. And then Rishkar's Expertise. Our commander has the potential to get pretty big, so we'll be able to draw a lot of cards and then get a free card off of that. So that's pretty cool. Finally, let's move on to removal. And the theme of removal is just gifting our opponents things. Beast Within, we're going to give them a pretty cool beast. Song of the Dryads, we're going to give them some ramp, you know. We got Chaos Warp, that's going to let them find a random permanent from on top of their library and put it onto the battlefield. So just helpful stuff in general, right? Reality Shift, we're going to let them manifest a card. We're just really trying to help our opponents with this category. Steelbane Hydra, this is where we get mean. This is where we actually start destroying stuff. Terror of the Peaks, again, this one has a pretty good potential to do a lot of damage, because it's going to do the damage they get with the counters they enter with, not the before power. So if you cast a 1/1 and let's say we have a Bloodspore Thynox on the battlefield for 5, it's going to deal 6 damage with Terror of the Peaks. Bane of Progress, very on point, and it's going to get rid of all those annoying treasure tokens and the enchantments that make them. Talking about you, Smothering Tithe. Cyclonic Rift, same thing. It's going to get rid of all those treasure tokens, which is becoming more and more of a problem. And then finally, Aberrant. This one's just going to get rid of their important artifacts and enchantments. With that, guys, that's the end of the deck tech. I hope you guys enjoyed. I had a lot of fun building this guy. I don't think he's getting the attention he needs just because Magus of Lucia Can's a little attention whore. Let me know if you guys enjoyed the deck. Maybe leave some suggestions for the deck in the comments. I always like when you guys do that, and I'll see you in the next one.